On episode 36 of Chit Chat, we talk about all the little things that make us love a game. Sometimes it's the crunchy gameplay that tests our brains, and sometimes it's just the cool toys we get to push around the board. Welcome back to Chit Chat. This is episode 36. We are going to be talking about what makes a good game. Of course, that's subjective. What makes a good game to Jeremy is completely different than what makes a good game to me, or at least somewhat. And Jeremy,
Me.
and Ryan, and Kira. I've forgotten who's sitting here, but we're all here to talk about what makes a good game. But before we do any of that, Jeremy has a winner of last episode.
Chris Perry, you have won Human Era, and this week we're giving away Micropolis. Just make a comment, and you will be entered to win. Start talking about what makes a good game.
Yeah, right? As if like there's just an easy way to narrow down. Here's the 5 things that make a good game.
If there was a formula, I would probably be a millionaire right now, because that would make a good game.
Right?
I don't know about millionaire, but you'd make some good games.
Well,
That's true.
What's a good game to you? Like when you sit down to play a game, what really makes it, what's the first thing that sparks it for you, that you know you're playing a good game?
What sparks joy?
What sparks joy? Yeah, no, sure, let's do that.
Well, for me, it's all about fun. Like fun. We've used the term fun factor before. That's key to me. As I play the game, it needs to be fun throughout. My fun doesn't come from like what's going to happen at the end, which usually revolves around the score or planning towards some long-term thing. I want my turn to be fun. I want my next turn to be fun. I can deal with my third turn not being so fun as long as my fourth turn is fun again. Like I need fun throughout or satisfaction. That's the main thing I'm looking for.
It's pretty cool too. I mean, as the longer we do this, we can probably, in the past we couldn't tell like what fun was, but I feel like now the more games we play, we're pretty in tune with what we like. Like, sure. I can tell within the first couple rounds of a game, and most people say you have to play the game 5, 6, 7 times. I don't think that's the case anymore. I can play a game once and almost immediately know within the first 10 minutes if I enjoy the game.
Yeah, and I would say, too, like you just mentioned, someone saying you have to play the game several times. I don't want to be too harsh on some games, but if someone says that about a game to me, on a certain level, I kind of feel like that's a flaw. Like, if you made a game and you're going to put it in front of me and it's not fun the first time, and I have to play it 2, 3, or 4 times to like get the fun,
yeah.
Well, it might be fun for some people, but that's not the kind of fun I'm looking for. I need immediate satisfaction, like I said.
Yeah,
it needs to be fun immediately.
There's too many games to play. If you're telling me that I'm going to, wait till your second play, you'll really start to get it after that. Sure, if I feel at the end of the game myself that, I've really gotten a concept of the game, and a second play, I'll be able to play better than the first play, that's one thing. But if you're telling me that to convince me to play it again, right, probably not going to play it again.
It's like it's a hook. You need that hook to draw you in. I don't see it's any different than like a good video game or a good movie. I don't need to watch a movie more than once to say, oh my God, I love this movie. Like instantly I know I'm going to like the movie or whatnot. I'll talk about one thing that I have started to pay more attention to, and that is creativity. I need a game that allows me to be creative with the turns that I do. It allows me to build engines that are unique to the way I'm playing, and it allows me to change the second, third, fourth time I play that game. Wingspan is the perfect example of that because it's an engine builder, number one, but there's so many cards and there's so many ways to approach that game. I've played it dozens and dozens of times, and I'm still experiencing new combinations of cards. And I don't feel like I've got to the limit with that game at all.
Yeah, that's true. The creativity on the player's part.
Giving
you the opportunity to go, I'm going to try something. We've played some games where you it's almost like, well, this is the obvious thing I would do on my turn, so I'm doing that. Yeah. And by the end of that game, you feel like, well, I just did... I didn't have any ownership of what I was doing.
Through the motions.
I was just, going through the motions and doing what was obvious for any player to do to get to the end, and that it does get a little boring sometimes.
Right. I feel like there's people talk about multiple paths to victory, and that's fine, and I like that as long as all of those paths are viable. You'll get to some games, you play the game a second or third time, and you realize, well, okay, but if I was smart, I'm always going to do this one thing. And if I feel like when it comes to me, I'm just doing, the obvious choice, then I'm not really playing that game. Mm-hmm. I'm just responding to what the game has put in front of me. I'm making the best mathematical decision, but I'm not really playing a game at that point, right?
Right. If everyone's sitting around the table doing the best math, like, that's not really much of it's a test of who's the best at math.
Right. You need to have interesting decision points mixed in with that. Like, Trois is a great example, because it does come down a little bit to who's the best at math, but there are so many decisions, and you can go in so many different directions in TWA, and still come out with scores that are very close together.
Well, there's strategy in TWA also, and how you draft the dice, and when you decide to refresh, and all those different types of things. So, yeah, I see that point as well. For me, again, going back to that creativity part, I need a game that allows me to do different things. Also, this may be only towards the type of games I like, but I like games that have multiple ways to score as well. And I like point salad type games. It doesn't have to have a ton of different ways to score, but I don't like games that have like 10 points by the end of it. I have to have like dozens and dozens of points that you can score. Those games like Shakespeare is a perfect example. I like Shakespeare as a game, but those games range in very low point scores by the end of it. I don't feel like I've done much by the end of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I like all sorts. Some of those games are great, but when you get to the end of a game and you're feeling like, okay, like how many more points did I get? 3. You're like, oh, so it was pretty much where we'd scored. We already knew who was winning then, so there's no mystery. I think everyone likes a little bit of that reveal to some degree. That's why, yeah, I agree. Point salad games really push a lot of buttons for me because everyone's played a good game. You still don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I've played a game recently where you could very much see who was winning and who was going to win. Like you've always said, race games kind of come down to this. And if someone gets out in the lead, you could sit there for the last couple rounds. In fact, I played a game recently, I won't name names, where the last 2 rounds, I was the one that was going to win. It was clear to everyone that was the case. And I recognized that they were like, well, I mean, why should I do, like, you're going to win.
Right, what's
you
the
want to
point?
play something else?
Right.
Because we're just going to be doing things to lose.
Is there anything in that game that could have changed that perspective?
Not that particular game. Yeah. I have played games where there can be enough of swing, and I would tell the people at the table, like, well, there are some things you could do to really turn things around. This game in particular, to bring it back to what I'd said earlier, there's a lot of things about this game that I love. Well, I'll just say it's Rajas of the Ganges.
Yeah.
I love a lot of these things about this game, but the one thing that is a problem for me with that game now a little is what I just said.
Yeah.
You can kind of see the leader if someone gets out in the lead. Now, if someone doesn't, then it can be close and you know what's going to happen. But if someone gets out in the lead, you spend the last round and a half thinking, well, you're going to win. And there's because you can very easily see what everyone could do on their turn to max things out, and it ain't going to happen for them.
Right.
Well, and I think too, I mean, for me, that's one of the things. So I like to play games and just jump in, so not spend too much time on the rules. Like I get the basic idea and start playing the first play, so I can experience the game and learn it as I go. Well, if I can't figure out how to catch up, somebody gets way out ahead of me, or there's no catch-up mechanic at all. Exactly that.
Defeating.
It just totally it's defeating. You don't want to play anymore. And again, that's not a game I'll put back on the table. So, I think if you can see the leader and there's really nothing you can do about it, the game's not, to me, that screams unbalanced.
There's some games, though, that are geared, like Magic the Gathering is a perfect example of that. If you're very skilled in Magic, you can have situations like that all day long. Same with Star Wars, Destiny, any of those CCGs, even like in some of the more competitive board games, those do require skill, and I can understand some games are just inherently flawed. Like going back to Rajas, there's a spot on that board that if a player doesn't know that they need to go to that spot, you can inherently abuse that spot over and over and capture that lead, and there's nothing they can do to catch up. And there's other games where, again, skill will determine your ability to do well.
Absolutely.
But there are some games, to kind of point, that has nothing to do with skill, and I think that's, for me at least, where it falls in the games I don't like, where that kind of situation can happen, but it wasn't because David outplayed me. It was maybe because David got luckier than me, and I know that
it's probably because I outplayed.
But it might be because he outplayed me. And I know that people know that we don't like a lot of heavy luck games, in general. But yeah, when you look at the board, like you said, and you say, "There's not one thing I can do on this board." We played an early prototype of a game. So I won't hold the game accountable for this, but Jeremy got pretty far ahead of me in the first round out of a 4-round game. And I did the math and I said, even after 4 rounds, there's no way I could catch back up. It became apparent in the very first round that he was going to beat me and I couldn't do anything about it. And at that point, you're right. Why would you want to play a game like that? I wouldn't want to play a game like that.
I don't even want to be on the winning side.
Exactly.
Of that. Like
it's just not
the
fun.
other night when I was just like, it wasn't
the fun out of
particularly
it.
fun. It's not like I'm gonna go, like rub it in anyone's faces.
Right.
I have won for the last 2 rounds.
Right.
How important is a thematic game to you guys?
Oh, for
your
me, it's
enjoyment of
huge.
it?
Like
Is it
that.
really?
That's one of the first things for me when we're talking this topic. If I'm looking at the box and it gives me an impression of what I'm going to feel when I'm playing the game, and I open it up and I see that and I feel like I know we talk about Wingspan a lot, but like Wingspan and the whimsy of Wingspan, like I didn't need to buy the extra components and stuff for that game to make it feel great and thematic. And I know it's just an engine builder at its core, but it's beautiful and it brings me into the game, and I want to read about the birds and I want to learn about it. The one with the tree, it's Everdale.
Yeah.
Everdale, like again, that's another one. It's a worker placement game, but it's pretty. I'm into it. I love the little resources and everything about that game, and the theme is dripping all over it. I enjoy that, and it makes it enjoyable for me to put out on the table. I don't want it to be dry.
I would say the theme is important. I mean, I'm not looking for theme, but I will say when a game weaves the theme in so well to the mechanics, where I'm doing something in the game and I'm like, oh, I get it. Like Wingspan's a perfect example where you're like flipping over the bird, and the way the predatory birds work is just really cool thematic. When you can see how they work and go, oh, because it's this type of bird. That just helps bring people into the game. And on that same note too, I don't know so much this is theme as it is sort of the experience game designers wanting to have. But when the experience ends up with letdowns time after time, that's a flaw. So I really like games where, so if it's a game of discovery where you're adding tiles to a game and things like that, I want those to be exciting experiences. I want to flip over a tile and not go, oh, so it's just like the last 10 tiles. I want to flip over that new tile and go, what is it? What is it? Is there something cool on there? I want that feeling of discovery, like dialed up to 11 for sure.
Yeah.
Well, to counter that though, like Arkham Horror Lcv is an example of one that's got plenty of theme, and it's Arkham and Cthulhu and monsters and cultists and all kinds of things like that. It's got a lot of letdowns. It's a game that's full of letdowns because it's hard and it's meant to be, and that's part of the theme. And so it can feel a little bit like you're getting beat up at times, but then when you have that time where you're like, oh, we just escaped, or we made it this time, but it all plays into that theme. So for me, I think to that end, some letdowns, if it's meant to be, like that game's meant to be hard, it should be hard.
Punishment,
Yeah.
for sure.
That fits into the
Punishment type
theme of the game.
letdowns.
Yeah.
And I think more to the point, like if you're playing a game where you're, for example, superheroes, but every single turn you're just getting destroyed by these minions and you don't really feel like a superhero, I think that is a failure of the game.
Yeah,
The
sure. That's a
game
good point.
needs, if it's going to promise a theme, and I'll point out Godfather as a good example. Godfather gave you a theme and lived up to it. Every turn you're dropping bodies in the river and you're robbing stores and you're trading drugs, and like it feels like The Godfather. But there are other games, especially when you can kind of feel like the theme was just tacked on, like maybe a zombie game where you don't really feel like you're living in a zombie wasteland or whatever. So it's a very fine line there.
I can go both ways with theme. Obviously a theme enriches the experience. I mean, look at games like Star Wars Rebellion and District 9, which we just previewed.
That's
like,
a great example.
Without that theme, it boils down to a mechanical game. But with that theme, you really feel like you're reliving the movie. And they did a great job of representing all the different days of that movie within the board game. But on the flip side, there's like really fantastic mechanical games that are super dry. There's a lot of abstract games that have zero theme or may have some kind of random theme tacked on, but the game holds up really well. So it's really about gameplay for me, and is it a fun experience overall?
Yeah, I think gameplay's first for me too.
Mostly. It still needs to look good.
I will play
Right?
games,
Yeah.
and I love to throw out this example, but Firefly, the board game. Mechanically speaking, if that game was anything but Firefly, I probably would never play it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not attractive.
Because it's not my style of game for sure, and it's super
I love that
swingy and
game.
random, and it's long, but
It feels like Firefly.
But it does feel exactly. It feels
You're in
exactly
the
like
show,
Firefly.
you're in the movie, you're seeing all the characters, you're flying to the different planets, you're making deals with the different people they're making deals with. I mean, that is why I play that game, because I like Firefly, not because I like necessarily the game. The mechanics are the mechanics, and they are what they are.
They are what they are, exactly.
And you kind of have fun being the crew. So
Yeah, so I think theme in that case can save a game that otherwise I probably would never play again.
Sure.
But even if I love a theme, like if I'm moderate about a theme, but the game is really bad, I probably wouldn't go back to it again.
Yeah, but it sounds. What I'm hearing here is that like we like games for a lot of different reasons
Yeah.
depending on the
not sure we
situation,
answered the
right?
question.
That's
We also
true,
talked
though.
a lot about what we don't like about games just now, but
Sure.
I mean it's certainly a subjective thing, and I think it varies from game to game.
Oh,
One of the
absolutely.
things we were talking about just before we started filming this was our ability to kind of like sit down now. I mean, we play a lot of games,
Yeah.
and we're certainly not geniuses. We can tell you that for sure. But when we play a lot of these games, we're able to usually right off the bat now kind of feel, particularly when it's a game that pushes all of our buttons, we can like, oh my gosh, this is something special, like for us. We just recently played one like that, Eldervale, Dwellings of Eldervale, that
Great
we
game.
just loved. It's an early prototype, so it didn't look great in its current form because it's a prototype. But all the things that it did were like Jeremy and I just kept looking at each other the whole game, going, that's
Yeah.
cool. This is a cool part. And then there's another thing like, oh, that's pretty cool too. So our first comment was like, make this like
Don't
make
mess
this
it up.
look great. Don't
Right,
mess it up.
right.
This is like a great product.
Yeah.
So we can kind of see that. And I can also kind of see the flip side too. Sometimes when I'll play a game and go, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get away from this one thing that's bothering me.
I mean,
Like,
like
it could be great in other ways, but this one thing is going to keep me from liking it.
I think that's special to people like us too. Like if you take a movie critic or you take a video game critic, all these people that do board game media, they touch a lot of different products. I mean, a lot of these content creators touch a lot of games, so they're going to inherently know what's good and what's viable in the market and what may not be the best thing to release. So Eldervale is a perfect example. As you said, we sat down and that game just did everything right.
Absolutely.
Everything right
Yeah.
from beginning to end.
It was a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
And I think too, because we do get to see prototypes and they're not always final, and we see them sometimes even really early. Like you can go, yeah, no, I see the game there. Like I see what you're on to. Yeah. It may not be quite there yet, but you can generally tell when a game's a game, and if it's going to, if you can see where it's going to go from there. And you can also, on the flip side of that, see when it's just dead in the water. It sounds harsh, but it's true. When it's just like I get that you're, and I find that for me anyway, a lot of times that's somebody had an idea and they're really tied to that idea and they're trying to build the game around that idea instead of fixing what will make the game. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, it's the great publishers, the great designers, and the great developers that can recognize those things and then make it all into a beautiful package and release it. So
yeah, and it comes down to, like, there are definitely, like you said, designers that you trust to do that. There are certain designers that even if I hear the premise of a game and I think this might not work mechanically, like if it's Alexander Pfister, I'm gonna say I give him the benefit of the doubt.
right.
So it's completely subjective.
There's not a science to it at all.
No, for sure.
All right.
So let's talk about
Yeah.
what we've been playing.
Yes, we played a lot in the past couple of weeks. We just got back from Gamma, obviously. We also got back from IndieCon, which is a local 3-day convention. It's on its 12th year here in Indianapolis. So we played quite a bit number of games. I'll start off first. I know you want to talk about some of these. I'll talk about Black Angel, obviously. Black Angel is a game that's been on my most anticipated list for 3 years now. It's from the same designers as Twa. Played it twice now. Love it. I'm not sure I love it as much as Twa. I need to play it again because we haven't played with the advanced tiles, which we think could change the game quite drastically. It is very different from Twa too. The math has been taken out and it's more of an exploration game where you're moving out on the board and then using missions to interact to be able to gather your points. You're gathering a lot of your points during game. Not a whole lot of in-game scoring, but it's a very unique system. The other one I'll talk about briefly was Rococo. We got Rococo back to the table.
Really?
Yeah.
What, in IndieCon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in IndieCon. That game is so good. Like, that needs to go to reprint. If a game ever need to go back to reprint, get past the idea that it's a dressmaking game. It's fantastic for you people that can't get over that hurdle. It's a really, really good game.
One of my favorite games by Matthias Kramer.
And the last one I'll talk about is we went back and Kira and I are playing Hero Realms, which it's a continuation of Star Realms. It's been out for 3 or 4 years now.
For a while.
Wow.
And we're going to play through the co-op version because it looks really, really interesting.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I remember back when that came out.
So I'll talk about Dwellings of Eldervale a little bit more, but not too much. You guys really need to check this out when more information comes out about it, but we had a chance to play it. This one is from Breaking Games, co-designed by Luke Laurie, and it's got so much going on. It's got worker placement. It's got tableau building. It's got some of the things you'd expect from these designers, and it's all in this fantasy universe. I can't say enough about this game, so stay tuned because we're going to have some content on
We're
this.
excited about it.
Eventually, we're very excited about this game. In addition to that, we did have our local convention here recently, IndieCon, and we played Don't Mess with Cthulhu. I mean, these conventions...
A lot of Don't Mess with Cthulhu.
The memorable moments from these conventions are playing things like Don't Mess with Cthulhu, a whole bunch of...
Just one?
Time's Up?
Well, Just One
Oh, yeah.
and Time's Up.
Mm-hmm.
We played some monikers one night, and then we played Time's Up the next night, too. So we did have a little bit of a comparison between those two. So I had a lot of fun doing that. And then, of course, can't have a chit chat without mentioning Vindication. I did teach Vindication at IndieCon. I actually went back Sunday, which I didn't really go to IndieCon at all Sunday, except early in the morning to teach some of our friends Vindication. And I will say, I've got my teach down on that game. Like, I might put my teach on that game up against anyone.
Yeah, this might be your second most taught game after Castles of Burgundy, right?
Probably, well, it might be my most taught
Wow.
game. I've taught Vindication quite a bit. I've certainly talked about it too much. So.
Wow.
What about you?
Oh, well, so we played a lot of stuff. So I got Kanban for the first time, so that was great.
That was a
Andrew taught me.
ridiculously long teach.
It was a long teach.
35, 40
Yes.
minutes of teach.
Yes, and that's
brutal.
when I would have loved to just honestly just jumped in and played and figured it out as I went because it is a long teach, but I did really enjoy it. Got smartphone to the table again because of IndieCon. Thankfully, I love that game and excited to maybe get it someday. But at Gamma, we played Super Fantasy Brawl, which is another one I'm really
From
excited
Mythic
about that we saw
Games.
from Mythic. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's head-to-head. You're like wizards. Everything's peaceful, and nobody knows what to do with themselves, so they go back and find champions to pit against each other, and it was super fun. And the miniatures are incredible. The game is fun. I know it's still in early working progress, but again, that's one where you can see, like, I can see the game. I'm having fun. I want to play it again. And then Sorcerer from White Wizard Games, which, man, it's
really
gorgeous.
cool.
Just like, that's one right from the beginning, from the box to everything about it is beautiful production, excellently done, and it's been super fun to play.
Yeah, the artwork in that game is
looks
awesome, and the fact that it's a pseudo. I won't say it's a deck builder, but what you're doing is you're taking a character, you're taking a domain, and then you're taking like an environment from all these different ones, and you're mashing them into one deck, and then you're using that to combat one another one-on-one. Or you can play 3 and 4 players as well, but it's really, really cool.
Yeah, looking forward to playing more of that. And then, that's the big stuff.
Yeah.
So I usually use IndieCon as an excuse to break out some old games, since we always have to play so many new games. But yeah, I played Rococo with Jeremy, Zolkin, which I haven't played in years,
Wow.
Hansa Teutonica, which is just a go-to for me. But I also did finally get to play Twilight Imperium 4th edition.
Yeah.
Oh,
which
that's
I
right. You
haven't
guys had a
played.
marathon.
Saw that.
Or
We
actually, it
did.
wasn't too
It was
long
about
of a game.
It was about a 5-hour game, which
That's pretty good for that game, right?
it's about 5 to 8 hours depending on your group. Luckily, we were not heavy AP group. We were making our decisions pretty quick. But it just reminded me how much I love Twilight Imperium. In that 5-hour game did not feel as long to me as some 2-hour games that I just couldn't stand. Like, that 5-hour period went by so fast, and you're generally, the time in between your turns is only about a minute or two. So you take a lot of turns in that game, and you're not sitting there just waiting for 45 minutes for the game to come back around to you. And it was a good experience playing 4th edition.
How many players?
We played with 5.
Yeah.
So
Seems like what's that play up to?
I think
8? Like a
no,
lot?
I think 6 maybe.
Oh.
I think the 3rd edition had maybe 8 with expansions. I don't know. I'm not an expert. But we played with 5 and it went really well. I think you might enjoy it more than you think you would.
I was about to say, David. I was about to say we'll see, but I don't know that we will ever see that. I'm not sure.
But it was good to actually have time to play it because it is a time commitment.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of playing games, I know it's all sort of fun and games. We have a lot of laughs here. And speaking of IndieCon, it kind of brings back memories of playing with a lot of people that are in our community here. And we just wanted to close the show in memory of some people we've lost recently. A few people here locally to us. So we just want to say to them, thanks for the memories playing games, guys. And until next time, we'll see you then.